Hello, everyone. Well, it has been absolutely incredible getting the chance to meet so many of you the past 2 days. And as this event comes to a close, I want to give you a little bit of something to look forward to. So really excited to introduce you to a little bit about the XR market in China and what you can expect at AWE Asia this March. So one of the first things, of course, you think about with China is just the sheer size of the market. And to give you a little bit of an idea of what that means, we're expecting by 2022 to be seeing 1/5 of all total global expenditure in the XR market to be coming. And what that means in terms of an anecdote, for example, in 2018, Q1 of last year, 82% of the standalone VR devices were actually in China, were sold in China, which is really exciting when you think about the sheer size of that consumer market. And expecting over the next, up until 2023, 84% compounded annual growth. And so before, we'll be releasing in the next 3 weeks or so, actually the industry report on the state of the XR industry in China, but wanted to give you some high-level findings of what you can expect. So of the industry survey that we did, on a scale of 0 to 10, we asked them, how optimistic are you for the future of the industry? And you can see here they also answered 8.3%, so people are really excited about what's to come. And you can see why. In terms of total annual spending, we went from about just over $3 billion in 2018, $6 billion this year in 2019, with the expectation that it's going to get up to $13.6 billion in one additional year. So that the sheer scale of this market and the size of its growth, of course, makes it extremely exciting. Now, that isn't to say that it hasn't been without some bumps. So in 2014, we definitely saw the interest build up until a peak in roughly 2016, where we saw a little bit of a pop and a little bit more consolidation in the industry. So many, many more people were investing, or investors were investing in many different projects, and which has since 2016 come down a little bit in terms of the total number of the products invested in. But the number of the sheer size of those investments actually increased every single year since then. So we're now seeing fewer total investments, but much larger scale of each of those individual investments. So much more consolidation in the industry. Now, in terms of where that revenue is going and where that money is being invested, you're still looking mostly now in games and entertainment. Main reason for that is because the consumer VR industry and now recently consumer AR industry is just so large because of the accessibility of devices, followed by education and training. So those are the two largest places, though you are now increasingly seeing it in other industries as well. And in terms of where that money is going, it's still a large percentage into hardware, which brings me to what has been ultimately identified as the biggest problem. So when we ask industry leaders in China what challenges are you facing, what they always are saying is content, content, content. So people are now looking at different ways that it can actually be leveraged, and you have these interesting devices and how they're going to be used. So here's one example, kind of funny example. Shanghai recently instated very draconian laws on how recycling is supposed to be done, and it was so complicated that no one understood how the system worked. So they said, okay, forget it. We'll create a game and put these in malls all over the city to teach people exactly how the recycling rules are supposed to work. And so you can see a very interesting sort of use case of how to create some interesting content for some of these devices. So you're seeing a lot of these augmented reality screens popping up all over the place, whether it's games or content in malls and stores. Now, because it's such a consumer-driven market, let's look at the consumer survey. So we were fascinated by some of this research that we did, but in the next 3 years, of the individuals that we surveyed, 59% said that they do plan on purchasing a VR or AR device, and this is for personal use. And when we were looking at where they would be looking to buy it, so 49% did emphasize that they would like to purchase a domestic device, but perhaps more interesting, 30% said they would actually prefer a global device. So 1/3 of the Chinese market, not bad when you consider the total sheer scale of it. So there's an incredible opportunity there for global brands. In terms of price range, the survey data did say that there is clearly a preference for slightly less expensive devices, because it is a consumer-facing survey, roughly 600 to 1,500 RMB, which roughly is $100 to $200, and then followed very quickly by 1,500 to 2,500, again, maybe 300 to 400 US dollars, and so on. So you're looking at sort of general, relatively high purchase price considering the general GDP per capita or Chinese income. In terms of the demographics, who is buying these devices? Who's searching for these devices? Well, 65% men between the ages of 20 and 29. So they're you're going to be your initial early adopters inside of who's buying it. But it's interesting, you are looking at a roughly 35% of the women that are also very interested in the devices as well. And you can see then shortly followed by 30 and 39 in terms of age demographics. So earlier, much younger than 19, much older than 40, a little bit of a drop off there. In terms of the search of the average individual when they're actually looking for what types of products, you can see here in 2016 there was an extraordinary spike. So everyone was in the daily consciousness of sort of individuals that were looking of how things were for XR. And now you can see it's kind of leveled off a bit since then. But we're now waiting for what is luckily going to be the next big surge up through end of 2019 through 2020. Now, what's most important probably for most of you, the opportunities as they exist in China. So we were ultimately able to identify 3, and which will be the highlight of AWE Asia this year. The first is importing global technology for existing hardware solutions. So China has a large number of hardware providers, both AR headsets and VR headsets, that are importing large core components of their devices that are actually coming from international providers. So for those that can identify a local partner and provide a solution, a specific solution to that partner, there's a lot of opportunities. Second, and probably the most cited, content and software. If you are in the gaming or entertainment space, in the education or training space, and you have an app or piece of software that you can identify and you can integrate it into the local Chinese headsets, they do have their own ecosystem, they do have their own market, then there is incredible opportunity for you, particularly if you can be part of the marketplaces of each of these devices. And then finally, the sheer size of the consumer market in China, because some of these devices are going to be some of the fastest, it will be one of the fastest adopting nations in terms of consumer readiness. If you do have a consumer-facing product, it's an incredible opportunity to try to get that in front of people as soon as possible. So that was a little bit of sort of the very high-level impact. Don't want to keep you guys from the Augie Awards, but we're really excited to see you in AWE Asia. If you have any questions, feel free to find me or reach out to us. Look forward to see you there. Thank you.